um, while we get started. And so just to let everybody know, this is the 32nd ECHO session for the New Mexico Family Advocacy Program. NMFAP is a model of respondent parent representation being implemented in the 13th and 2nd Judicial Districts that utilizes interdisciplinary teams of lawyers, social workers, and parent mentors working effectively together to provide quality representation and the advocacy and support families need for reunification or other preferred outcomes in the child welfare system. So today we're just going to see a couple of video clips and discuss kind of what we saw in the video and some motivational the last one's a motivational speaker actually that got all of us pretty hyped up when we were able to see it. So was hoping to share it with you all. Just remembering there's also the post survey session that you need to fill out, and if you could, that is something that we keep track of and data on, and it's really important for the program. Our next ECHO session is October 20th, and we actually have Ashley Williams, who's the county office manager from one of the offices in Bernalillo County, and she's going to do an introduction to safety organized practice and CYFD's new safety assessment tool. Not so new anymore, but we wanted to make sure everyone had the opportunity to hear kind of the language that the department's using with the tool, the difference between kind of checkboxing and actual behavior change, and just general information in regards to safety organized practice. All right, so I'm gonna get started. Jen, did I leave anything off? I'll bring that one up at the end. I would like to introduce, we have a new parent mentor who started with us on the 1st, and her name is Shelly Marshall. So Shelly, do you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. Thank you so much. My name is Shelly Marshall, and I am officially the newest member of the New Mexico Family Advocacy Program, and I am very happy and very excited to be working with all of you. I know a couple of the gals and just can't wait to get started. Thank you.
You can see the virtual claps there. Welcome, Shelly.
Thank you so much.
And we welcomed her into our group chat first thing Thursday morning. So she's
many times now.
She's definitely part of our group now. All right, so I am going to start the first video, and it is about 12 minutes long. Like I said, I'm going to show 3 different videos, and then we'll kind of discuss in between. And so that's the format that we're using today. All right, hopefully your technology is on my side. All right, can you guys see my screen? Thumbs up. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna get started.
Doing to help change it. This young man, he's not only the awesome assistant to Commissioner Jerry Weiner, but he does a lot of work. I listened to a lot of his panel speakings, what he's doing to the communities, how to better the child welfare system. And for me, I thank you. Without further ado, David Kelly.
Wow, Bridget, I'm a little overwhelmed by that. That's far too kind, and I remember our conversation quite well. I have to say I've been on countless Zoom calls, and you by far have the single coolest backdrop I've seen so far. So thank you for the introduction. It's so good to see you again. It's a real honor to spend some time with you. I'll keep it brief because frankly, I know who the speakers that follow me are, and they're the folks you should be listening to, not me. If I'm able to convey just one thing, I'd like it to be just how truly grateful we are at the federal level for your work to support families. We were grateful before the pandemic, and that gratitude has only deepened. There are few people in this country that are doing more to help families right now than those of you who are involved with multidisciplinary representation. And beyond that, I'd say there are few people who see and feel the gravity of the hurt separated families are experiencing right now, like you do. I can only imagine what it must be like to be doing your jobs, to be in your shoes right now. And I'm gonna tell you, I cannot possibly imagine what it's like to be in a parent's shoes right now who's gone weeks, maybe even months without seeing your child. But you're there for them. You're consoling, you're helping meet basic needs through making food deliveries to front porches and homeless shelters. You're advocating for what's right. And you're giving families hope, as you always do. And you're doing it now while balancing your own family responsibilities and maybe even risking exposure to the virus yourselves. So short of developing a vaccine, I don't believe there's anyone doing anything more important right now than you are. You embody the very caring and support our system needs to be about, should be about, and can be about. And you embody justice. So it's time for the rest of the country to follow your lead. The pandemic is forcing disparities that have always been there squarely out into the light. And it's laying bare all of our systemic shortcomings. There's a common refrain I hear people say all the time, and I'm sure many of you do too. And it's typically delivered by an upper middle class white person from some organization or another, or an agency. It usually happens in a meeting, maybe some kind of speech or talk. And it's really delivered earnestly. And I think it's intended to be somewhat bold or progressive, and we'll see who can predict what this is. There'll come a certain point in time in the meeting when someone raises their hand and says, we need a system that's good enough for our own children. And I have a reaction every time I hear that statement that I have to work really hard to temper. And I have that reaction because that's an offensive statement. I know it's not intended to be, but the fact is the folks most likely to say that have little to no chance of ever having a child enter the system. It's wholly improbable. And it's improbable because they don't have the pre-existing conditions in their lives that make that likely. They don't have the pre-existing condition of being poor, and they typically do not have the pre-existing condition of being a person of color. They're also typically pretty satisfied with incremental improvements to the system. And if they ever had a child in care, there's no way they could be happy with such slow progress. There's also this dominant perception or dominant narrative out there that certain families are broken. And this is also offensive, deeply offensive. And it has spurred much of the legislation, even widely heralded legislation in recent years. And it directs where and how our resources are focused. They're focused to try to fix people. They're focused on providing treatment. And I think it's clear, there are instances where families will benefit from treatment. But all families will benefit from being treated well, shown respect, supported, and given help in tougher times. And I'd say it's never families that's broken. What's broken is our moral compass and our inability to help families, our inability to fund, our unwillingness to fund the types of things that we know will help keep families strong and together. But despite all these realities, and you know them well because you live them, I'm hopeful. I'm maybe more hopeful than ever before. And it's because the pandemic is giving many people who might not otherwise ever experience discomfort or vulnerability a taste of it. More people than ever are missing family right now. They're missing community and the benefits that they bring. And people are being reminded that family is important. It's who we turn to when we are struggling. It's who we celebrate things with, who we mourn things with. People who are there for us. We've got an opportunity to emerge from this crisis a far more just and humane system. And we can't and should not return to the system that we had and knew 8 or 9 weeks ago. We've got a chance to rebuild and replace the child welfare system we know with a child and family well-being system that's there to support families, keep them strong, and help heal when that's necessary, as opposed to a system that causes and compounds trauma. We've got 2 overarching goals at the Children's Bureau. The first is to reduce the need for families to ever make contact with the formal child welfare system. And the second is to dramatically improve the experience for those children and their parents when foster care is necessary. And there's absolutely no question that multidisciplinary representation is absolutely essential to accomplishing both of those goals. That's why we changed our policy to allow for e-funding now to cover a portion of the cost for social workers, peer partners, investigators, paralegals, and the overhead associated with running multidisciplinary shops. We believe that keeping families and communities strong is the best way for parents and children to thrive. We think that robust networks of community-based prevention supports are the best way to get there. Supports that are provided in trusted places by trusted people, that are culturally relevant, that are respectful and stigma-free, and places that help reinforce the message that everybody needs help sometimes, and asking for help is a sign of strength. So we believe in families. We believe in you. And in the words of a parent I had a chance to speak with as a larger call with a group of parents just earlier this week, it all starts with recognizing that families are essential. And this seems to be something that's overlooked, forgotten, or undervalued. All of you already know that. All of you already act as if families are essential. And now it's time for the rest of the country to do the same. So thank you again for allowing me to share just a little time with you. It's really a great honor.
All right, so thoughts on that one? And he is from the Children's Bureau, and he's right under, he's like the second in charge in the Children's Bureau. Any thoughts, comments? No? All right, I'm gonna play the next one. Let me get it set up.
I think Susan wanted to say something.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was trying to get the video set up.
That's okay. That's okay. I was struck by and agree with the statement that he said because of this pandemic, because of the way we're so isolated and we can't have our normal way of living, that everybody's had a little taste of deprivation, right? What you might call deprivation on a level of here or here, right? And so and it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like down the road when there are decisions to be made about real deprivation, real high level loss in the world. So that to me was one of the highlights of kind of what he said.
Thank you, Susan. I think the thing that I walked away from that too was asking for help is a sign of strength. And so keeping that in mind when we're working with families and they're asking for that help. All right.
No, this is, could I just
Yeah.
say something, Camille? When I have understood that after in Great Britain, if the folks in London survived the Blitz, that it made a difference as to a sense of community through the whole country. And it's one of the reasons they have a healthcare system like they do. And I guess I'm hopeful that we will greatly improve our healthcare system, our behavioral health system, and have access to services that prevent the contact in the first place. So
Agree.
I just think I've thought a long time that we should have a system where if we've got parents who want to be reunited with their children and they're committed to that, we should make it virtually impossible for them to fail. So.
Yep. All right, second speaker.
Becker, and I'm the Managing Director of Social Work at the Bronx Defenders. It is my honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Tricia Stevens. When I first heard Dr. Stevens speak about her research on parents navigating the child welfare system, I felt like the hundreds of clients I've had the privilege of representing had finally really been seen. Not the way too often judges and caseworkers see our clients, or the way the media portrays the parents that we represent. Dr. Stevens really saw them, the resilience, the complexity, and the trauma that the system, not the parents, inflicts on the families that we get to know through our work. At a time when the media is telling a story of rampant child abuse happening undetected without the watchful eyes of mandated reporters, Dr. Stevens' voice is more important than ever. Dr. Stevens joined the faculty at the Silverman School of Social Work at Hunter College as an assistant professor in the fall of 2015. She earned her doctoral degree from New York University, Silver School of Social Work, and completed her predoctoral fellowship at the NYU Mick Silver Institute for Poverty, Policy, and Research. Dr. Stevens' research is fueled by a firm belief in the power and possibility of recovery and healing from exposure to trauma. Her work has direct implications for policymaking, direct practice, teaching, and our work. Focusing on poverty-impacted communities of color who have been affected by the child welfare system, Dr. Stevens has engaged in research on both a local and a global scale. She specializes in understanding the social and mental health implications of exposure to trauma, with an emphasis on using evidence-informed knowledge to improve outcomes for child welfare-affected parents and their families. I'm grateful that Dr. Stevens has agreed to join us and share her reflections and her expertise with our incredible National Family Defense community today. And so turn it over to Dr. Tricia Stevens.
I have to unmute myself. Thank you, Caitlin. And it is indeed my honor to be here among allies, among friends. And so I want to greet you with the amazing words of Ella Baker, who was a profound civil rights activist. And Ella Baker said, "We who believe in freedom shall not rest. We who believe in freedom shall not rest until it comes." And so today I want to talk about changing the narrative. And that is something that I am absolutely committed to doing and will not rest until it comes. And I see this time of COVID as a time of possibility for us who have been in the trenches. Some of you have been in the trenches far longer than I have, and I appreciate you welcoming me and giving me space to speak. When I started my journey of doing this work, I was nestled in this amazing organization called the Child Welfare Organizing Project. And Caitlin, part of the reason why I was able to see, as you said, was because in that space, I received some of the warmest hugs I'd ever had in my life, from mothers who had been vilified and dragged through the family courts, had their children taken away, some whose children had been taken away and lost custody permanently, only to watch those very children come and find them again. Families are not ours to tear apart. Families have the right to be together. And I firmly believe that if we have the gall to enter a family space, we actually should do it in a manner that leaves that family far better off than when we found them. That is the only reason we should enter a family space, is if that family will be in better shape when we leave them. So let's talk a little bit about the power of words and the power, David, what you talked about, the power of words to define and the power of words to guide policies and shape our thinking. But I wanted us to do that in a historical context. And the reason I want to take us a little bit back is because I do a lot of work with historical trauma theory, and without a history and without a context, you have no idea of where you are or where you're going. So I want to understate here very clearly that the United States has an appetite for family separation. It is an appetite that is a strong one. It's an appetite that was legalized and made firm in the constitutions of this country from an early time. It gave people the power to buy and sell children, to take them away at any time they saw fit. That is the history of this country, and that is the context within which we are living. Well, the slavery was hundreds of years ago. And I would venture to say, in the words of Dr. Dorothy Roberts, and many of you have read her work, I read an incredible study she did where she said, go to any family court in the United States of America at this point in time and simply sit and look. And what you find when you go to the family courts in New York, in the cities across this country, and is the drastic racial and class difference in those who are entering the door as plaintiffs and those who are in charge of making the decisions about people's lives. I remember going to family court and seeing that myself, and my heart breaking as parent after parent after parent was devastated in a court setting that was not intended to actually help them. I watched as parents showed up hoping to get their children back or get some information on where to go and what to do. And devastation families for the most part. And so that fueled my work over time, because I thought to myself, how is it possible that this is happening in our country, in the United States of America? And so I had to go back to this concept of the appetite for separation and the systems that have been built around that appetite for separation. And that's the foundation of many of the systems that we encounter here. And here we are with COVID, and I'm thinking about what that looks like in the time of COVID. Almost as soon as COVID came in about 9 weeks ago, we started, I think some of you also saw this, the advertisements, the national advertisements that said, be alert, the instances of child abuse will go through the roof. We don't have what was called sentinels in the National Child Abuse Study that was done, the NIS4 that was done in 2010. We won't have the sentinels there, the doctors, the teachers, eyes on children. And really, these are the eyes on the children of Black and brown families and the eyes of the children of poor white families. These are not eyes on the children of middle class and white families. So we can be really clear about that. Just had a reporter reach out to me yesterday and say, Trisha, so can I interview you? Because the reports to the hotlines have been going down. And I thought to myself, so you mean the parents didn't all of a sudden release like rampage on their children? Why is that? Why would we believe that left unchecked, families would go to town on their children? And that is because there is a lack of belief in the dignity and the right to families for these, to family structure for these families. So Elizabeth Bartholet in about 2009 wrote and said, and she's very influential, and when I read this paper, it shocked me. She said that the removal of Black children from families was actually proportional to the rates of abuse that they experienced. And I was stunned when I read those words, because I thought to myself, so this is the core of it, that Black families, Black mothers and fathers will harm their children. They cannot be trusted to raise their children, right? Nowhere in that paper did it talk about racism or the impact of racism on the child welfare system. It was assumed that every actor, every sentinel, every person who was acting in good faith and without bias and without implicit or explicit bias that would affect the outcomes for families. Everyone was doing their best, and the parents were the ones not to be trusted. Now, I've met many parents over the years, many parents, and almost every parent I've met has actually said to me, I needed help. I really did. It's the way in which the help was offered that was harmful. The way in which it was offered. Parents would talk about struggling with knowing that their children needed educational support, but being blamed for everything about how their child was acting, only to watch them enter foster care and get like this host of services suddenly, and being stunned that they could not get those things for their children by simply asking, or where was the help when they asked for it versus the help being given after separation. But again, we have this appetite for separation. We have this appetite for fixing, as David mentioned earlier. We don't see families in the dignified manner in which they need to be seen in order to meet them collaboratively and say, what do you need for your family? What does your family need in this time to help you get through? And I love the stories of families, of the teens. By the way, the moms and dads that I've talked to, you guys are not, you're not their parent defense team, you're their family, by the way, just so you know. They don't see you as, you know, randomly like, oh, in and out. Your family now. Is the stories I've heard of people just going above and beyond and primarily showing that you care. Primarily showing that you care. You care about their children, you care about them as a family unit, you want to see them back together, you care. And that's the world difference of family. Sometimes it's the first time since they've encountered the child welfare system that someone saw them and said, what can I do? How can I be with you? So I want to take us back to this time of COVID for a moment, because I want to build on what has been said before. And Marty, you alluded to this in your remarks as well. So we're all stuck inside. I've been stuck inside. I go out for exercise. I can't help it. This is too much. I wear my mask. I'm a good citizen. But we're stuck inside with these screens, and social media has come, you know, into our worlds. And I keep seeing these images. And there's so many class privileged and race privileged parents now making gallon-sized drinks. I'm talking about like probably half a bottle of vodka with a mixer, and proudly showing on social media, I'm stressed out. I've been at home with my kids for 6 weeks. And I think to myself, and you will never have child welfare show up on your doorstep to question your parenting. A Black mother may not walk through the Bronx with a container in a brown paper bag without the fear that someone is going to stop her. We have to understand the role of race, the role of class, the role of power, and the role of privilege in fueling a system that has an appetite for separation. So let's talk for a moment about the moms and the dads that are within this system for just a moment, because I want to challenge, I want to be mindful of time, because I need to get off so Sharonda can have your time. I want to challenge this idea of families as fragile or broken or vulnerable. Because these are families who during COVID have stepped out without PPE because they could not afford to lose a day's work. These are families who have lost family members. And I meant to open by acknowledging for those who have lost loved ones, our condolences. For those who've been affected and become ill, may you recover quickly and fully. These are families who understand deeply that members of their family will be taken away and incarcerated far faster than they will be educated. These are families who are walking out from shelters with vouchers and trying for the 10th or 12th time to find an apartment using a voucher, only to sit there and watch the landlord calculate how many kids you got, what floor are you gonna be on? I don't know. And then they turn out again to go and use that voucher. So I don't know if vulnerable matches for me. I hear persistence, because I don't know how many of us who have never had to do that would be able to get up after the third time and say, I'm still gonna go try use that voucher. So I'm challenging this idea of fragility and vulnerability, because we have to see the strength that families have, and we have to treat that strength with dignity, because that is my, sorry, timer. I'm sorry, that is now, okay.
You're good. You're good.
No,
You're
my
good.
I'm trying to not use up too much time, but
We're working. We're doing well on time, Trisha. You're good.
awesome. So these are families that oftentimes know better every inch of their community, of their street, of their block, the reality of nighttime, daytime, the reality of who's doing what, who's been up and where, who's gonna do what else, far better than any of us who walk in. So we need to ask parents, we need to say to them, what do you need in order to help your family? Because we know that when parents are supported, they do a far better job of raising their children than anyone else can. And that is proven world over. Our graduates of the child welfare system who were removed and never reunified with their families, the child welfare system is now turning to the point where they're saying we've got to do better over the last several years because it wasn't sufficient what was being done beforehand. And still, those raised in the child welfare system are most likely to be re-entering into the child welfare system as parents themselves. That can't be the badge of honor that the child welfare system wants. Because if we enter with the intention of improving the lives of families, why are they coming back? They should never be back. They should be at the end of the line, not at the front. So if we enter into a family's life, how do we help them? How do we support them? How do we treat them with dignity and respect? How do we see them for all that they bring to the table and all of the power that they have within themselves, and help them? The parent advocates, the attorneys, social workers, you've gotten to know parents and you believed in them. Never underestimate the power of believing in someone who is doing the best with what they have. To become their ally is a truly powerful thing. And so I think I'm gonna wrap up there, and I'm gonna say once again, in Ella Baker's words, that we who believe in freedom shall not rest. And all of us believe in freedom, or else we would not be here. And we who believe in freedom shall not rest until it comes. Thank you.
Any thoughts? Just let that sit a little bit. We have one more, and it's 16 minutes long, and it's the last one. So let me just cue it up.
While you're queuing that, Camille, one of my thoughts during that was, wow, I wish, you're speaking to the choir here. I wish the judges would see this, and understand that history of that.
Yeah, definitely a different perspective and wording for it. It definitely hit me.
And I feel that some of the change needs to come from the government, not funding CYFD to separate families, but funding them to put them together and keep them together healthy. But that's way above our pay grade, right?
Doesn't have to be. We're still advocates. All right, last one. And like I said, it's about 16 minutes long, just so you all know.
I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker. She's one of my true heroes, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I first became aware of Sharonda approximately 2008 when one of our parent representation social workers, Tori Gildred, said, "Hey Mike, I got 2 rock stars. One's Elise Morrissey and the other one's Sharonda Selvino. And they're going places. And she could not have been more right about that. I've been able to watch Sharonda grow over the years and see her tireless advocacy in statewide work committees and legislative work groups and through Parents for Parents and what we call PCAP, our Parent-Child Assistance Program. In 2017, we were able to bring Sharonda into our program, the Washington State Parents Representation Program. And I've had a first chair view of watching Sharonda continue to do her work and collaborating with our wonderful attorneys across King County when she started, and see all the work that she has done. I think it is one of the great in public welfare. Very
change agents that have come into my life to work me, to get me, and to lift me. Incredible. I want to thank the chairs. I want to thank the committee. I want to thank all of the speakers for everything that you hold. And as I look at this incredible panel, right, I ask myself, well, what am I doing here, right? And the deal is really, right, I got off drugs. I got my kids back, and people just said, Sharonda, you know, you don't have to live life way better for you. We want you and guide you and give you the path. And so I just couldn't be more honored to be a part of something so great. As I was thinking about this conversation today, and I would thought about, you know, how to frame this, and what I thought about was, of course, my families. Right. And I thought about, you know, how tired we are, right? There's this collective weariness going on amid COVID, right? And I know that we are very challenged, right? But I have to tell you, we're collectively weary, but we're not collectively suffering. And when I think about parents that are in child welfare right now, what I think about are do you know where your kid is? Right? Even if your kid, I mean, my kid's on my last nerves, right? But I know where my kid is. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like thinking about parents that are in the middle of COVID, not knowing where their kid is, and the suffering that goes on for someone who cannot say, I don't have any idea where my kid is. So I want to just frame this around missed opportunities, because I'm thinking about how many missed opportunities I have watched in the middle of COVID. A crisis doesn't require less activation, it requires more activation. And what I've been able to watch is a lot of excuse making on why things can't happen because we're in the middle of COVID. And so I thought about particularly a few of the things that have kind of gotten under my skin, and one of those has been visitation. I had the opportunity recently to contribute to an article, and the article name of it was Birth Parents Fight for Rights, or Fight for Visits in the Middle of COVID. And a comment that was said in the article was by a foster parent was, they are the ones that made the choices which led them to losing their children, and they shouldn't be worried about making visits at this time. And I thought to myself, wow, you're caring for somebody's kids, right? Missed opportunity to show some compassion, some empathy, some understanding. And I'm really clear that we are in a state where birth parents, and the way that we see them, constantly says they're undeserving and that they shouldn't want or need to be with their kids. And I'm baffled. I'm baffled that we live in a society that doesn't recognize how inhumane those type of attitudes truly are. So what I've been able to watch and see is a lot of campaigns, and one of those campaigns that here in Washington is be a hero. And the be a hero is because the numbers are so down on reporting for children, right? It's down 41%, 41%. And so the campaign is be a hero. And what I was struck by reporters, and we need you, the community, to come and be a part of be a hero. What I was struck by, first of all, is if there's a hero, there has to be a villain. So I haven't even touched the child welfare system, right? And you have villainized me. And then, of course, if there's a hero, you've got to rescue somebody, right? So now we've instilled this rescue mentality into our community members. And I think about, once again, opportunity missed, right? Why couldn't we have given our community members some insight into the stressors and the risk factors that can introduce someone into the child welfare system and enable them to actually be a support and to guide a family through COVID and not into child welfare? So there's another missed opportunity. But one of the most outrageous missed opportunities that I've witnessed is this projection of this influx of children coming into care. And I'm so grateful for the feds that are talking about prevention, right? Because we shouldn't have children coming into care. And one of the real strategies around that prevention really is lowering the mandated reported numbers. Like, that's one of the strategies of actually looking at prevention. So we're here. The numbers are really, really low. And this campaign that went out to recruit and retain parents, foster parents, for this influx of children coming in. Of course, I went and I did just a little bit of research. And so what the numbers and the statistics actually say is first of all, the statistics say that, like, in 2017, 7.5 million calls went to intake. And out of those 7.5 million calls, 269,000 of them actually needed some type of intense intervention. The reality of it is that you don't need to be worried about those calls not coming in. The calls should have never come in the first place. So instead of infusing fear into our public, we should be taking the opportunity to talk about hope and help. And I look at, here we are, once again, missing opportunities. So as I've been able to kind of look at, you know, where we're at, where we're going, and where do we go from here, here's what I know for sure. First of all, I'm not missing any opportunities, because I know and I recognize that parents are struggling, that these are difficult times, and that I must be activated in a way that I've never ever been before. When I think about a parent that's currently navigating this system, I think about the hopelessness, how disempowered they are, how hopeless they are, confused and lost how they are, and how a team needs to be wrapped around them. I cannot imagine navigating child welfare on my own. And to be honest with you, it's really quite cruel and irresponsible to send someone into this system unarmed. The interdisciplinary team is actually a force to be reckoned with. And I think about how I got here today and the successes that I've had and what I've been able to, upon reflection, come to is that, you know, I had a team of people that understood this system. And I needed an advocate, I needed a support, I needed a person who could continuously tell me to get up and fight another day. And I was able to, you know, to emerge triumph from this experience. But as I think about parents today, right, that are in the middle of COVID, what I can tell you is that there is no way you can navigate this on your own. As I have talked to departmental staff and I've come up with, here's what we need to do next. What I'm always confronted with is, here's the reasons why that can't happen, Sharonda. And I'm just like, not only is that the wrong answer, I'm gonna walk you to the right answer. Here's the resource, here's the number, here's how we're gonna get there. You're gonna give me some money for some Ubers. We're gonna make this happen, right? And I've been really working hard to try to educate the people that I have to work with, because this is not a time for excuse making. This is a time to instill hope and activation into people who actually have absolutely no recourse and absolutely no voice. Nobody wants to hear from a parent, right? You are the person who needs to go away. And they focus so much on who we were and what we did. And I'm not saying that, you know, there's not some points where we've done some things that, you know, need some correction. But I got to tell you, the response that people have to parents says far more about them than it does about me. Our way that we are interacting with families at some points is so disgusting that I am horrified that this is humanity. So as I look at where do we go from here and what's the hope, right? I'm going to tell you, I don't want to miss the opportunity of creating an interdisciplinary team so that a family can be supported and guided through this system. We have a system that is in place that is preparing people. We don't need preparation, we need prevention. Part of that preventative way of approaching and having this system is having strong defense teams that are comprised of people that understand systems and navigation. I'd like to share with you just a really quick story that happened a few weeks ago. And I got this call from this client of mine, and she said, they're coming for my baby. And she was in a home with a suitable other. And the suitable other had decided that the strain of having them in their home had just been so overwhelming that she had called the department and asked for the child to be removed. So my client was horrified and of course terrified. And so she says, they're coming for my baby. I'm on my way to you. Now, first of all, I work from home. So I was like, where are you going? She says, I'm coming to your office. And I said, no one's in their office. I said, whatever you're doing, pause and stop and go back to wherever you were. That's the first thing I want you to do. And I said, I will figure out the next steps. So I immediately reached out to her attorney, whose email had a bounce back that said, I'm on vacation. If you need something, please reach out to so-and-so. And so I did. Immediately, the attorney supervisor called and we talked about the case. And she made herself back home and we did a three-way call and we started to come up with some solutions. In the interim, the department had come up with where the child was going to be placed. So here we are in the middle of COVID, courts aren't operating, services aren't available. She's about to be homeless and her kid's about to be somewhere else. So immediately, what we decided to do is figure out a few things. And the first thing I needed to figure out was how to get eyes on this child and how to get this woman housed. And let me tell you what, I did both. So as we prepared to go to court and the attorney had prepared the motion, I was on the phone. And what I can tell you is I was prepared for all the questions that a judge was gonna ask somebody, because I've done this a few 24 hours. And so I knew those questions and I had those answers. We were able to have that child placed with a friend. I helped her locate the friend. I helped us look through what are the challenges in the household. I was able to secure childcare. I was able to secure birth to 3 so that we could have lots of eyes on this child, that we could have a child that wasn't in a very cramped space, to give us enough time to come up with what we needed to do next. I can tell you, none of that would have happened had there not been a team. The attorney would not have been able to figure out the pieces that I was able to figure out. And of course, I don't have a law degree to navigate motions and understandings of court proceedings. Most importantly, what this client needed is she needed a level head to walk her through. She needed accessibility and she needed answers. And we were able to do that. If you are in a jurisdiction and you do not have a multidisciplinary team, you are missing an opportunity. And I hope that as you continue to look at these families, to understand the system, that you must conclude that we have to equip people to be able to reclaim their rightful place as mom and dad. So I'm going to end this with a couple of takeaways. First of all, COVID has taught me more than anything else that we run with fear. It's everywhere. It permeates, they just inundate you with it. Wherever you go, you need to be fearful. And if I buy into that, most people are immobilized because they don't know what to do. But what I choose to do is I take my fear and I've moved it to hope. And from hope, I have to be able to be willing to help. And when we equip people with the right resources and supports, they can navigate this system. As treacherous as it is, it can be navigated. You just need to have a team of people who know how to do that. To share a bit of insight. I hope that you go to your homes, your respected homes, that you be reminded that you have been incredibly blessed, that there are people that are homeless, that are on drugs, that are having extreme mental issues, that do not know where their children are. And I don't know about you, but I cannot rest until I know that those children have made it home. So thank you.
Thoughts? Shelley?
Very powerful. That woman was amazing. She inspired a lot of things and brought up a lot of things. Where I'm at right now is I had fear. Somehow, some way, hope was given to me when I got help. And it was that effective for me. I had major behavioral changes. If we can just be there and hang in there for somebody to get to that point. I think she brought that home. She emphasized that. It was a great video. I loved it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, I know it's 1:04 and some of you might need to leave, but we wanted to really share these videos with you, just one, because we are that team that they talk about, right? And we are those champions, and we do provide that hope within our parents and that hope within the system, just by the work that we do together. And so just want to tell all of you, thank you for what you do. Thank you for being those partners with all of us and creating that team and that support for those parents in our need. All right, don't forget to fill out the survey, and you all have a great day and take care.
Thank you, Camille. Have a good day.